I was 9 when my mother passed away. I actually ran to a neighbor's house and I literally knocked on their door. I said, my mother passed away. My father explained to me how Shiva works. And he said to me, you're not bas mitzvah, you're not 12 years old yet. If you don't want to sit Shiva, you can go to school tomorrow. Or if you want to, you can stay home. I said, I want to go to school. So I went to school the next day, Monday. I can tell you today that I did very not well. Inside, I was a mess. I was an absolute royal mess. I was angry, I was sad, and then I hit high school and I hit 10th grade and it hit hard. Really, really, really hard. I was desperate for the Shiva that I never sat. I wanted a week where I could sit in a chair and everybody would tell me stories and I would sit there and I could be sad in peace.
None of your business, Oshi. None of your business, Michael.
It's the None of Your Business podcast, hosted by Michael and Oshi.
Welcome back, everybody, to another inspirational episode of the None of Your Business podcast. I'm your host, Michael Greenfield, here alone by myself. But I'm not really alone because I have a guest. And this guest is Sarah Rivkah Kohn. Welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So appreciative of you being here. And I'm sorry that I was late.
No worries.
I'll tell you something. I'll get straight into this for a second, is that when you're really, really that busy, by the time you hang up the phone and put something in your calendar, you already got 3 more phone calls and 5 more things to do and 10 other thoughts that you forgot that you needed to do. So you didn't put it in correctly or you didn't put it in at all. And that's what happened to me.
I want to tell you something. It's very interesting. I go on the road a lot fundraising. And when I'm in a different community, I sometimes, I'm going from one meeting to the next, I don't remember. So I have literally a WhatsApp chat with one of the people in the office where I voice note afterwards. I'm like, this happened and this needs to happen and this has to be scheduled for that time. If you trust me to put anything in my calendar, never happening at the right time, I'm going to get confused.
So what you basically said is you have an assistant.
I outsource all my executive functioning, like literally all of it. It was interesting because somebody said to me the other day, he says, I don't understand, you're all over the place in the sense of your brain goes to so many different creative ideas and stuff like that. I said, right, the success is that I'm able to outsource all my executive functioning. Anything that needs the follow through, the detail, all that stuff is outsourced to somebody in my office.
I'd love to learn about how you got to that point, the struggles of where it got you, to, and the journey along the way, and understanding who you are. Why did you get into what it is that you're doing? What is it that you're doing? And really, we used to do this thing, ChatGPT. I think ChatGPT, I'm so done with ChatGPT, by the way, in terms of promoting them. I use them every day, but I'm not promoting them anymore. The world knows about ChatGPT. It is what it is. Let's not discuss it. It's part of our life. It's like saying, you're
that
on
was the funnest part of your segment, though. I was like, how did they get this information?
So you want it back?
I'm like, I want it back. I said to somebody, I said, if I come here and he does ChatGPT, I'm actually genuinely curious what in heaven's name they would pick up.
No way.
I said, it
You're the first time I'm not doing it. Bad timing.
Bad timing, right?
You know what? I'll do it live.
But, oh, gosh, what do you put in to get the types of results that you get? Because I can ChatGPT myself. I would never get the stuff that you get about people.
First of all, ChatGPT
what are
knows
the targeted questions that you're asking?
So what most people are not aware of is that ChatGPT has projects, and in each project, you can define for the project all the rules and details.
Got it.
So what I suggest to people that are using ChatGPT on a daily basis, like myself, is start a project, sales.
Okay.
Fundraising, right?
Okay.
A project within your organization, and then go to it and teach it and say, have a conversation first. What is the best practice of fundraising? And tell me what you understand about philanthropists and entrepreneurs and how to achieve the goal of telling them what I do in the quickest way possible and making the biggest impact on them. And, and talk to ChatGPT and then say, give me information. Wow. Take that and then ask ChatGPT, please make rules for this project that from now on when I have conversations with you, it should be directed in that tone. And then have an overarching ChatGPT understanding of who you are as a person. So ChatGPT knows me. It understands what the None of Your Business podcast.
So you're going to get the answers that nobody else gets.
It knows I'm sarcastic. It knows I have a sense of humor. Doesn't really know how good looking I am yet because it hasn't seen me. But wait, Elon Musk will get there.
It's so funny because I know you can do it while you're doing this, but I know for myself is that ChatGPT is probably my hardest thing to use because I'm old. And in my head, I always had to think for myself, and I was pushed to think for myself that it's so hard for me to outsource my thinking. Like you're saying, come up with a script and stuff. Do you know how hard I work on those, right? Now, I really should outsource it because, hey, ChatGPT probably has many ideas that I've never thought about, but it's a struggle for me. It's a real struggle.
You're talking about the creativity and outsourcing? You can't outsource your creativity.
Yeah, no, but at the end of the day, sometimes, I say to myself, okay, what would be the best way to sell this to, sell this corporate sponsorship, right? I can't yet let go of that piece and let an AI bot come up with that for me.
It just needs to give you ideas, though. It is used as a tool, just like you use advice of your friends. You don't really listen to everything they're saying, but you're taking on the golden nugget.
No, it is. It is true. And from the couple of times that I have used it, here and there, it's, it definitely has some interesting directions that I
got to be honest with you, I'm not listening to you. It's impossible for me to type and listen. And anybody that claims they can do it, I believe is lying to either themselves or to us. You can't type and listen at the same time. When I'm having a conversation with someone, I see they're typing, I automatically pause and like, whoa, continue. I'm like, no.
I'm the same way, but I'm used to talking to people. You do it, and then I'll tell you. I'm used to talking to people who type and do this at the same time.
Then they're not really paying attention.
That's fine. I go into somebody's office for a solicitation. Sometimes they're texting while they're doing it.
Oh, of course.
And if I walk out with a check, I'll survive.
Also, because you want to have just subliminal messaging in there also. You want to know that they're in front of you, you're present.
It's fine.
Yeah, all that is more...
We'll take a 20-second pause.
ChatGPT says what about Sarah Rivkah Kohn from Links? Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Okay, that's how I start, okay?
I always wonder, what's on the internet about me? Let's find out. I don't know if I just dug myself into a hole.
No, God forbid. It's no fluff, read out loud worthy. Shocking truth. In a world of endless Jewish singles events.
Nope, that's not me. So they got the wrong person.
Oh, my God. Really?
First time?
Leadership role in Links, an organization focused on strengthening connection with the Jewish singles community. No.
Nope.
Wow, maybe I spelled your name wrong. Is it S-A?
R-A-H. Ooh, now I want to know who the other one is.
S-A-R-A-H?
R-I-V-K-A-H.
Oh, the H's. I didn't put the H's in.
And then Kohn is K-O-H-N.
Okay.
We do all the H's.
I didn't put all the H's in.
That's fine. And you can write Links family. Sometimes that will get it more targeted.
How do you spell Links?
L-I-N-K-S. And family, how to spell, hopefully. But it's interesting because there's a lot of different organizations with the word.
Don't forget, I'm not paying attention.
That's fine.
But they are.
The audiences. Who cares?
I'm joking. Okay. So I'm like, wrong one with an H. Sarah Rivkah Kohn from Links family. Try again. And it's thinking by the way. Oh, another thing, by the way, is that I taught ChatGPT as, again, an overall rule is always think before you answer and research the following websites. And I direct it of which in each project. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So you're mechanech ChatGPT. I'm like watching that. Okay.
Exactly. All right, let's try this again.
Yeah, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but this would be fun.
She started Links Family in 2006.
Yep.
Because she lost her mother at age 9. Whoa, I didn't see that coming. I'm sorry.
No,
like old giddy. Okay. And basically said, cool, the community doesn't have the support, so I'm building it. Casual hero behavior.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you, ChatGPT. You're the only person who can run a grief organization and still have the energy to coordinate Shabbatons. Okay. Interesting. The world thinks orphans and imagines charity. You build infrastructure, peer support, mentors, guidance, publications, referrals, and the entire ecosystem, basically turning the pain into a blueprint of help.
Yes. Ooh, now you're tempting me to use ChatGPT more often because that's a good sales pitch. That's amazing. It more often. That is amazing. Wow. Okay, well, I'm glad we pushed through that.
We got that out of the way. Exactly.
So who am I and what do I do? So...
Let's start when you were a kid. Where did you grow up? Who was your family?
I grew up in Monsey.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Back to my stomping grounds right here.
What was your name?
So my maiden name is Cutler. I grew up and not related to any of the BMG Cutlers. I'm so sorry. Or the Bensonhurst ones or anybody who wants to be related.
That must have been very annoying growing up.
My father is an only child who was born in Boston, of all places. So no, nobody's relative here. I grew up in Monsey, and Monsey then was a very different place than what it is right now. Before we started, I was kind of talking old Monsey stuff a little bit. I grew up on Carlton. We were the fourth from family there. So I think that says a lot about where Monsey was because those houses now have 3-4 families on them. But anyway, so yeah, I grew up there and kind of I stayed in Monsey till I got married. Interestingly, my husband originally is from Israel, but he grew up in Monsey. And then... So when we got married, everybody was like, oh, Monsey to Monsey, cute. You'll stay in Monsey. I live in Brooklyn. My husband was learning in Borough Park, and I was desperate to live in a city. I was the kid who didn't belong in the countryside, who everybody's like, how do you manage in Borough Park for all these years? I'm like, bring me the noise, the trains, the access to things, the movement, the city that never sleeps. That was what I needed. Other people need the quiet, and I'm very happy for them that they found Monsey, and I'm glad they think it's still quiet.
Good one.
Yeah, but so that was kind of my childhood. So I got married. I moved to Borough Park. That was 24 years ago. And my first career, I did the very Jewish thing. I went to seminary and then I started teaching. And I had always wanted to teach. Like, that was a passion of mine. I taught fifth grade. I taught fifth grade English for quite a number of years. And then...
ELA?
I didn't teach ELA. I taught all secular subjects really for fifth grade because they don't really have departmental at that age. So I was teaching math, science, history, English language arts, ELA.
What grade do you think is the grade that makes a child? Like every teacher in every grade likes to say, my grade is the most important.
I don't agree with that. I think every single grade does. And I think that there's no way to say, I skipped ninth grade. Funny story. My school actually was a really small school at the time. They didn't have enough kids to sustain the ninth grade. I went from 8th to 10th. Okay. I still look back and did I manage it? Sure I did. But was ninth grade a crucial year? Yeah. But when I look back, I say, which grade would I have said it's okay to skip? And when you see that there's no grade that's really okay to skip, then all of them have something crucial. I felt in the fifth grade what I was doing was, first of all, the material that we taught then was fractions and decimals. These days when I do percentages and everything like that, I look back to how I taught it. And I was not a math person. That was a really bad story. I did not know how to teach math. So every night I would teach myself the math the night before.
So you were responsible for teaching different secular subjects.
But I had no idea
whether you knew it or not.
Correct. That's the challenge of when you're not teaching a departmental subject. Like, I'm a real English person. I later became an editor of a publication. That's really my passion. History is my passion. I can do that. Math and science, not so much. I pretty much failed all math in high school. I passed by the skin of my teeth by taking it like 3 times. Whereas history, I could have totally done whatever I wanted to in class. And if my history teacher is listening to this, sure, I read more novels in her class than anything else, because I knew I could. I knew it in my sleep. It was my passion, and it was fine. I got great grades without it. Exactly.
You're one of those that didn't have to pay attention.
In history.
And did a good job.
In math.
I always hated those kids, by the way.
In math, it was terrible. I would pay attention and I would try so hard and nothing about it made sense. The interesting part is that today, just to fast forward, I run a nonprofit and I deal with $5.5 million a year. So at the end of the day, I better know my math, right? But I'm doing projections, I'm doing budgets, and I'm, thank God, really, really, really good at it. And I always wonder what happened. And I think some of it was that it became very practical and meaningful. Whereas in school, it was just like another subject I had to take, but there was no practical application for me. I didn't have to sit in the bank and say, 1 second, that doesn't make sense to me, and win my round, right? Now there's an incentive. I want to know these numbers. So I became very good at numbers. Percentages still are tough for me, but like anything else, I'm really good at it. I also have a general knowledge of numbers, which as a kid, I didn't realize that I had the knowledge of numbers without knowing how to compute, which meant I had an understanding of what $1 million is without an understanding of how do I add 100,000, how many times do I have to add 100,000 to get me to $1 million? And I think that's just an interesting part of our school system is that sometimes we, certain things that we're not great at school, we end up having to teach ourselves in a way that makes sense to our brain, and we're successful at it. But anyway, yeah, so I was teaching 5th grade, and then on the side, I was writing for some of the From media that was out there. I was writing them for Hamodi. I was writing for Bina. This was before Mishpacha or Ami ever existed, and I loved it. Who
was the first?
So in the From world, I think the Jewish Observer predated everybody, right? I think the Etzed was after that, and then came Hamodia.
Jewish Press was always around also, but that was more modern.
It's true. No, you're right.
No?
Oh. But you're right. They were around, and then came Hamodia, and then came Bina, and then came Mishpacha, and then came Ami. Like, that's pretty much. And then the Yiddish publication explosions has happened in the last few years. So I was very invested in the publishing world, and I was doing interviews and getting, features, kind of stories with different people, pitching it and writing. And at some point, I couldn't go back to teaching. It was too many days of the week, obviously too little money also. Just like I was coming home with $800 a month and I couldn't pay my rent. So that wasn't working very well. So I ended up becoming a features editor at Bina and Hamodia. One of the things that I really started with was a dumb job that I hated. It was being the editor of the home section. Anybody who knows me will have a good laugh. I'm not good with colors. I'm not a decorative person. But I think this was just the way I was raised, was take the job you're offered, figure it out while you're on there, and use it as a step, to climb higher.
Please say that message again slower so everyone understands what you just said and they can accept it. Anyone in their teens, 20, 21, 22, 23, I would say all the way to 24 or even 25 should hear that message again. Yes. You got to drill it in.
So my father, Al Sham, was born in the 1930s in Boston. Everything that you wanted to get, you really worked very, very hard for. And I always say that it's completely his credit that he put into me a lot of business senses. But one of the things was, if you have, like, I loved writing, right? I want to be in the magazine industry. If you become the janitor in the place, take it. So you're there and you'll figure out a way to get up to the position that you want to get up to. But hustle hard at whatever they give you. Take it. Don't say, hey, I want to be an editor. I want to be a this. Nah. So they gave me this job. Believe it or not, it was from 8:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. They needed 3 hours a day, 4 days a week. And then they wanted Sundays. They had nobody who wanted to work Sundays, obviously. And they needed someone who was going to take the phones and deal with the last minute stuff from 8:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. on Sundays. So because I wanted this really hard, I took all the hard hours. I was willing to work for those 3 hours. And I'll say this, I got $18 an hour. 10 went to my babysitter and 8 went to me. Okay? And I did this for a reason, because this was what I really wanted to do. And if I really wanted to do it, I was going to have to suffer through the first few months until I proved that I was worth more. So what would happen was they would do these planning meetings for their Yontif issue or for whatever. And as somebody was going into the planning meeting, I would slip in an idea. I'd say, I was always the ideas person. So I'd say, hey, I wonder if we should cover XYZ as a topic, right? And they'd be like, oh, that's a good idea. And eventually they said, do you want to come join our planning meetings? So I came to join the planning meetings. And then they'd say, well, do you want to explain your idea to the writer who's going to be doing it? And then at some point, I just de facto became their features editor because I was doing it.
Kudos to them, I have to pause.
Yes.
For recognizing and asking their employees to do more and getting them out of their comfort zone and recognizing that the quietest person in the room may be the smartest. And really just like...
So it was a wonderful ride. I did this for about 8.5 years.
Anybody there that you remember specifically that mentored you?
They're all wonderful. There was Mrs. Lichtenstein is something else. There's Rivkah Posner. There's Mrs. Roth, Pam Scher, Rachel Bashi-Binnick. I worked with all these people for years.
You're talking about major talented people.
Many of them are, some of them have moved on to other, talented stuff that they do. But we had something great going, and we had a wonderful time doing it as well.
Kudos to you guys! Wow.
So yes. Anyway,
who knew? Such a team behind it. That's
and there's and I will tell you that I will never in my life open a publication and not have an editorial lens to it. People know me from my letters to the editor that I write fairly often, and we can talk about how that is just pure marketing, and my opinions that can't be kept to myself. But part of it is because I really recognize the work that goes into things. And I know how much effort a writer put into a particular thing. And getting feedback, even if it's pushback, people want to know that their stuff was read or listened to. You got to be on a podcast. I mean, you want to know that people heard the podcast, right?
By the way, thank you. I totally forgot. We are sponsored by the Primes First production team. Stefan's like, phew, thank God he got to it. Thank you to all our subscribers, our listeners, our followers, our commenters, our feedback, our pushback. We love it all. And that's a great reason why. I never actually clicked with me why, I'm saying
because when you're putting an effort, you don't know, right? We're sitting here now. You're going to put this out whenever you're going to put this out. You don't know who's listening to it. You don't know if these people got to it this week, right? Naturally, or if people are really weeklies and stuff like that. And you want to know that people got your feedback. So anyway, while I was doing all this, because apparently I can't do one thing, like you've read in ChatGPT, my mother had been diagnosed with cancer when I was about 2.5 years old. I'm an only child. Both of my parents had been previously married, but I didn't live with their children. We're 20 and 25 years apart, so it's quite the difference. But I grew up as an only child. My mother got diagnosed with stage 4 cancer when I was 2.5, and she was given 6 weeks to live. And she really, there's a story that I tell in almost every podcast because it's just too good. But she had this doctor who came into her, and he was a young doctor, and he said to her, you have 6 weeks to live. And she looked at him and she said, look, you can give me the diagnosis, tell me what you want to do with me, but you can't decide. You're not God. You can't decide how long I'm going to live or not. And he said, all right, you have it your way. I'm going on a biking trip for the weekend. I'll see you on Monday to start treatment. Went on a biking trip for the weekend and got killed in a biking accident. and she outlived him by 7.5 years. Wow. So it's like, we really don't control the world. And that was where the kind of vibe that I grew up with was my parents very much believed is that everything is Hashem. And I lived very much with that in my DNA, which doesn't mean it wasn't a struggle later on, and it isn't a struggle sometimes, but it was very much like this was their mindset for real. So I grew up very, very, very happy home. My mother was energetic to another level. People who were her friends who met me, and everybody's like, oh, she has so much energy to her, right? And they're like, this was her mother on a bad day after chemo. She's got nothing on her. Like, you can't. My mother had crazy energy levels. So, yeah.
That's a crazy compliment if I ever heard of it. Like,
so she had stage 4 cancer, lived with it for about 7 years. And I was used to this grind. She would go in for treatments, go to the hospital. I would go to somebody else's house for a few days because I was an only child. And my father, mind you, was working in 47th Street Photo, Manhattan, commuting, going to visit her in the hospital, coming back home, like the whole 9 yards. They really had a challenge. And I would live with 2 wonderful families in Monsey every time my mother went in for treatments. And then we also, at the same time, because I told you my mother was like a little crazy, she had, do you know Rav Yagen in Monsey at all?
No.
So he's a Sephardi rabbi. There was somebody, Rav Nissen Yagen in Israel, who was very big in Kirov. Like, it was at the start of Arachim, they were all doing these seminars in Israel, and they would have girls who became frum, and then they would go back to the Tel Aviv disco scene, and you would lose them. So what they realized was also, how do you teach someone at the age of 25 everything that we've taken 25 years to absorb? It's really hard. So their idea was give them free trip to America, free room and board in some frum family's home. They'll learn about Kashrus, Shabbos, how a frum family conducts themselves, the nuances, the kind of the sixth sense and the fifth Shulchan Aruch that we have, and have them live in somebody's home where they can get that sense, and then they'll be able to build on that. So that's where we had. So over 9 years, we had 27 girls living by us. And my parents married each one off. They all left our house, Baruch Hashem, as Kalas. We have pictures on the front steps of everybody in their wedding gowns, and me in another color gown for each wedding. And they left our home that way.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah, and officially the cover story was that my mother had stage 4 cancer, and they're going to help out with, kind of keeping the house running and helping with the cooking and the days that she was weak. So she would sit in the kitchen and totally say, this is what we're making today. And if she didn't have kayach to stand on her feet, they would help by doing that. And in exchange, they got free room and board, and they also got job placement and free dating coaching and awesome company and a frum house. So then every Shabbos, all the girls who got married would come back with their husbands and their kids and whatever. So I didn't really grow up like an only child in the real sense of the word. And my mother was very concerned that I shouldn't be spoiled. So it was like I had a lot of stuff because naturally I was an only child, and I had a playroom that was the basement of a Carlton home, and it was very big. So all my friends used to love coming to play. And we had a great swing set in the backyard that probably doesn't exist with the many families that they have there, but we had a backyard. And I really had a very, very, very happy childhood in that
If you don't mind me asking, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
it's just,
sure.
How were they able to financially afford this? 47th Street Photo, I'm saying, unless last time I checked.
So I will say that let's also remember that the house on Carlton cost $90,000 in those days.
Sure.
Okay. So a lot of the expenses were much, much, much cheaper. My mother's parents, Baruch Hashem, were financially comfortable, and they definitely helped out. I don't know in what way and how much, because that is something that I wasn't told, thankfully, as a child. You're saying
you're marrying off over 2 dozen
No, so the 2 dozen, no. So that was all my father's fundraising.
Oh.
My father,
you grew up in a fundraising environment as well.
Okay, so my father worked in 47th Street Photo, and when my mother got diagnosed, my father went to get some brachas, obviously, and one of the things that he had been told is that in Elu Devarim, we say, Bikar Cholam, Achnasas Kala, Levayas Ames. Right? And the break, I think it was Rav Chaim Kreisworth's part, the break between Bikar Cholam and Levayas Hameis is Achnasas Kala. So getting involved in Achnasas Kala distances the two.
So helping women who need to get married helps you separate the sickness to the death.
Exactly.
Wow.
So he very much took that upon himself.
That was for all the non-Jewish listeners.
Yes, absolutely. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
So he took it upon himself. He went from shul to shul every Sunday on his one day off. He would be out of the house from the first minyan. He would go to Beis Tefillah. He would go to Satmar. He would go to Vishnitz. He would go to this one, to that one. Every time he heard there was a good, powerful minyan somewhere or a few minyanim back to back where it's worthwhile to stand there. I don't know if you remember this, the old Satmar Shul on the corner of Phyllis Terrace. I don't know if it still exists there in the way that it was, but it was a minyan factory. So he knew that people there generally came at 10. That's when their minyan factory would pick up. So he knew to be in Vishnitz for the 6, 7, 8 and to go to Satmar for the 9, 10, 11, 12. Like he had this system really down, and he would come home with sackfuls of quarters, of singles, and I would sit on the little coffee table, not as cute as this one, and he had these little counting methods. Now, he wanted me to learn math, didn't work very well, but he'd be like, pile the quarters in multiples of 4. Right? This way, you have 8, you have $2, right? And I was his counter. Every Sunday afternoon, I would count the money. He never trusted my counting. He would count over because he wasn't stupid. This girl could not be trusted with money.
How did he do? How did he do every week?
But it's very interesting because I don't remember the numbers, right? I don't remember them offhand, but I remember 2 very distinct things. One was that one week I found a $100 bill. Right? And I was like, oh my gosh, you got $100. And my father smiled and he said, and the guy asked for $99 and change. And I was indignant. I was so mad. I remember being like an 11-year-old. I was fuming. And I said to him, I said, why didn't you get mad at him? Like he used you as a change machine. Banks were closed on Sundays then. You were his change machine. And my father looked at me, and it's something I still use in fundraising. And he said, a yid wants to give you $1? And you think that's not good enough? And it was like, whoa, okay. Like every dollar was holy to him, like in that way. So yeah, I would count all the monies, and he would use those funds. We used to make the weddings were in the old Yeshiva Spring Valley Boys. It was very cheap. Most of the stuff would be donated. The gowns, we had a gemach on rotation. There were a lot of things.
He was fundraising for these other children.
But he would fundraise for, they all got married with his money. He paid the first month rent.
This is crazy to me. Yeah. I'll tell you why. Simply because, I get interrupted a lot in life. I was laughing with someone, my friend in Urshaloma this morning. He was saying, how many times did somebody ever stop you? And how many times did someone ever stop you and say, sir, 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 right? Sir? How many times did anyone stop you and say, ma'am, ma'am? To me, it's happened many, many times where someone would say, sir, they would stop me. I'm afraid sometimes to wear a nice shirt and sunglasses when I go to the kotel because I'm like, oh no, I'm just going to get stopped way too much. I'd rather just and then if I do Kriya, I want to hide it. So I don't want to see that I'm the Kriya guy so they're coming after me. It's 2 things that are standing out in what you just told me that I want to talk about. Number one is that the people that are interrupting you in the middle of your davening, or the people that are interrupting you at the kotel, they may be collecting to make weddings for other people who, without their being there and without them being a messenger, wouldn't even be able to get married off. And you're looking at them like, stop bothering me for $1. Stop it. What are you doing with your money anyways? You're here all day, every day. And meanwhile, you're telling me that, no, that person was my father. And that's just fascinating to me. So I just want to mention that.
So in second grade, we had this, sometimes you come to school for PTA and they make these nice bulletin boards, right? Of my mother is, or my father is, right? And they had this thing about I don't know, they had my mother, my father, whatever it was. And I wrote my father is a beggar because that's the only English word that I knew for what he did. Did I know the word fundraising? No. Did I know about anything else? So I wrote my father. What does my father do? My father is a beggar. And my mother came home horrified. And she tells my father, I can't believe this is what she wrote. And my father told me the story years later. I didn't even know about it. My father said to her, this is the nicest thing she could have written about me. What is she going to say? He goes to 47th Street Photo and he does customer service? She wrote what she sees as the only job, for lack of better words, that she knew about me, which is I beg on behalf of other people. That's fine.
What a human being.
So I really grew up with parents, and I have to say this, anything that I do, I always say, I just came, actually, both my parents are buried in Monsey. So anytime I have the opportunity, I love going here. They were snowed in. I'm sorry, you're going to have to get used to my dark humor. But they were snowed in. I just said to them, I'm like, Ma, if you can't get your driveway plowed, I can't come visit you. So whatever.
How far were you? You felt like a Cohen.
That was really pathetic. My mother, at least, was buried 2 feet away from here. My mother and my father are not buried in the same place in the cemetery. So my mother was buried in the Beis Tefillah section, right here. And my father's buried somewhere up there. There's no chance I'm getting to his cave or whatever.
But you felt the energy.
I waved. It's
waved.
fine. I gave them a piece of my mind. This is what I go for. I go for when I really like have a piece of my mind. Like, I don't understand. The one thing you're supposed to do for me is go up and daven for me to be matzliach with this or that. So whenever I get stuck, I just go give them a piece of my mind. You don't cook for me for Shabbos. You never invite me. You don't host me, right? You don't do all these things because you're dead. The one thing you're supposed to do is daven on my behalf. I'm not letting you get off with this. And sometimes I pin them against each other. That's the most fun. I'm like, you see, I just talk at the Kvarim. And I have to say this. I've spoken to many Rabbanim about this. Not everybody goes and says Tillim at Kvarim. Like, you got to talk your heart out. So I go there and I just start a conversation. Now, it depends where I want to go that day. Sometimes I go to my father because I know he would have given me a yes faster on this, or my mother, right? I got to pin them, It's like in real
genius.
So I go to my father. I'm like, I already told Ma about this, and she's going to go up and do a good job. Go give her backup. It's ridiculous. So I feel like my parents, when I go, it's tremendous siyata d'shmaya.
You just did this morning?
Yeah. I came on my way from
here. This type of conversation?
Yeah. So what happened? We're doing this concert in 2 weeks. I think I told you about this. It's a very interesting show, which we can get into.
No, just tell me quick. What is it? So
the show is basically, it's called the Strings Concert, and it's to benefit our Pesach gift card program, which funds about 450 of our families who lost a parent Pesach-wise. Like, we totally didn't go into that. I founded an organization called Links Family, which is for kids and teens who lost a parent, and it services thousands of kids around the world.
I promise you we're getting back to it. Continue. I'm very good at this.
Just for the audience's sake, I'm saying that part first. So one of the programs that we do is that we have a Pesach gift card program. And this concert was like a brainchild of a couple of years ago when we realized it's just a hard time of year to fundraise. It's kind of 4 months after our campaign. It's 6 months before this. Like, it's that in-between stage. We had to create something new. So we created this show, which is an extremely high-end, beautiful show. It's couches, it's dinner served couch and table side, and a beautiful show. Like, really high-end, gorgeous.
Like any other potential goer, all I care about is who's singing and what kind of food.
Okay, so the way it works is that the first hour and a half is like more of the networking. So it's a reception style. It's the carving stations, the tacos, the fun foods, and the sushi and everything like that. And then once you get inside, it's a real dinner.
Who's catering?
So it's Corporate Events, which is Heshi Circus. He's done our Shabbatones for 16 years now. So I always say, and we can talk about that in business, I like to say that if somebody does a really good job with you for 16 years, don't reinvent the wheel. And he's completely exceeded our expectations.
By the way, good for you and good for him. I like that.
Yeah.
Keep
so at the end of the day, we have this meal, which is like, it starts with starters. You come to your table, there's like jerky and nuts and candies and stuff like that. You're sitting on a couch. One of the things that we found at a show is how often do you want to get up and stretch and stuff like that? If you have a comfortable seat to sit in that you're sitting, you're staying. And we don't find people leave our room.
How many people are in this room?
So we make it targeted. It's about 300 to 400 people.
So 300 to 400 people are sitting on couches, chilling, eating, networking, connecting.
Exactly.
And now comes the music.
Right, exactly.
Okay, who's the
music part of the show? So what's very interesting is we came up with this concept. We rebranded a couple of years ago as Links Family. So every year we spotlight a family in music, and then we have others that are partnerships. So we have very few of these singers, even if you've heard them before, do it solo. So you don't have the expected songs because they've got to sing each other's songs and be in each other's spaces. So something very unique and different happens. So we have Avram Fried with Eitan Katz as one duo, which is not a duo that people usually see. So they're having fun with each other. Then there's the duo of Shulam Lemmer with Baruch Levine. Also not a typical duo. I like to have fun. We have an amazing production team.
When and where is this?
February 22nd in Ocean
I really
Place.
hope I'm here.
Okay.
I want a couch. I want to put my legs up. I want to be fed, and I want Shulam Lemmer and Avram Fried to be singing to me with a duet.
That's right.
Yes,
and then what
beautiful.
we did is
By the way, unfortunately, I'm sorry to say, is that the reality is, people are going to these things, are going to, for this, we're not going to support whatever the organization is.
Correct.
So
Even
that's why
though
you have
I'll
to be
explain
so
to you
creative.
from a marketing perspective what happened.
Yeah.
So, and then what we did, the spotlight of the family this year is the Saliks from London. Yigal Salik, his kids and grandkids are coming in and doing a tribute to him with his songs.
Yossi Green was here talking about his history with him.
Yes.
Wow.
So they're doing like the songs that people grew up on. And here's, by the way, I just want to say on a marketing level, our median audience of here is not kids. It's 30 to 50-year-old. we had to go back and say, what music do they know? How current are they? And you want some current, no question there. But what we realized last year with what we had a medley of Marvelous Mythos Machine last year. Every grown man in that room sang every song by heart. It was childhood. And when you take people back to that good place, that place of fuzziness, there's a comfort zone in it. Like, we don't try to be original in our song lists of like songs that are Yehupitzville, you've never heard of them, right? We want to bring you into where you feel like you're part of the show.
Very smart, by the way. Kudos to you. Do you know which songs yet are on the list?
No.
You don't know any?
No, those. Okay. I actually, funnily enough, before I came in here, I was sent the song list and I didn't look at it because I said I'm going on a podcast.
So can we look at it together?
No, because I'm not outing it.
Oh, you can't publicize it.
And then what we do is
you can just say this.
Yeah, right? None of your business. One time I get to say it during the show. Great, I got to do it. But the idea, just from a marketing perspective, is that we have two reasons to do this show. And people say to me all the time, it's a very high-end show. How do you make money? Right? There's a lot of questions on a lot of tzedakah organizations in terms of that. And to anybody in business, I want to ask a question. If somebody said to you, slash your marketing budget by 50% and bring in 200% income, you can't do it. Right? And we knew we were building something big. I had one rule the first year we did it. I said, we need to make money. And I had a minimum number that I wanted to make. Okay? If we spend 50 and earn 50, I'm good.
I see.
Okay. But the
cost of acquisition
exactly.
of a customer, yeah.
But year 2, I wanted it to go down, and we're down, which is amazing.
Good for you.
Right? And I knew that would happen because thankfully the first, I would say 50% of the seats we sold to people who came last year. So it was our cost of marketing and customer acquisition, for lack of better words, it really went down.
Yeah, this is a pay-per-click campaign concept, by the way. In order to cost acquisition of a customer online is the amount of money that you're charging. If you're spending, if you want someone to buy a $100 watch from you, you got to spend $100 to get him.
Correct.
And then you can make the money in the future when he comes.
So there's a lot of pushback on that in the community at large because there have been organizations that have spent 100% on a campaign and made 0%.
Sure.
Or even 90 to 10%. Right. And I understand the fright of a donor in saying, why are you doing this? Right. This is crazy.
I love it. Pinhole this for a second, because I want to go back to what you were saying by your parents this morning. So you have 2 weeks away.
Okay. So I need more. I have my last 10 couches. Okay. That's not a lot of couches. And thank God, Jews are last minute. So it's not like I'm really concerned, right? That room's going to be full of Mitzvah Shem. We're going to sell those. Did you tell this
to your parents, or are you telling this to me?
No, I'm giving you the history. I went to my parents and I just said, I don't understand what's taking so long. Like, I don't get it. If you have connections with Hashem up there and you have a chat with him every day and you're right there, like you're the neighbors, then hello, what's happening? And I have this all the time. It's the scariest thing. I walked out and I got a confirmation of a 50K corporate.
Stop it.
No, happens all the time. As I walked out, I could tell you, I sent somebody a picture of me at my mother's kiver. 5 minutes later, I could show you the timing. I had the text from somebody confirming it.
That's beautiful.
Right? Wow. Now, what is that? That is really, at the end of the day, it's, we know that you go to a grave, you can't pray to the person who's dead, right? We don't do that as Jews. We pray to Hashem to use the merits of the person there, the schos of the person there.
Some people forget that.
And that's why I'm saying it. And then, and for me, I always look at it and say, my parents both died when I was fairly young. My mother died when I was 9. My father died like a month before COVID. I was 30.
Yeah,
35.
I'm
in my 40s. That's fine. I don't have a problem with that. But for me, every year is such a gift because my parents died when I was young that to me, I'm like, oh my gosh, I made it. Thank you, Hashem. I made it past 40.
You don't look a day over 30.
Thank you. So anyway, the bottom line is...
We're holding that age of a compliment. Right? Imagine we're getting really...
So anyway, the bottom line was that I really recognized that they have this gift for me, right? I can focus on the fact that they're not here, and trust me, there are many days that I do, but there's also, like, here's my fringe benefits. I'm going to cash in on it like any good kid, right? Your father has protectio with someone. You're going to go get it, right? So I really find that, for me, that's been part of my journey. And because I've worked through all these things, this is some of the stuff we're able to do with the kids, of getting to the stage of being able to have that sort of connection, even with a parent who's not alive anymore in that way. And it's, it's something that was not easy for me at some point, like to develop because I was angry. And we can go into that. But I think at this point, I'm at the point of like, score me. I'm going to go get what I want to get. And this morning was just one of those moments. It was so beautiful. And I just want to say, Ma and Tao, you're listening to this. You're not done yet. We got 10 more couches to sell.
Oh, nine
Nine more couches. Yeah.
I got a couch. I got a couch. I mean, hopefully if our schedule allows it, but in general, I love what you're doing. And it's the concept of it. I understand. I don't understand more of or enough of it. So I want to tap into that emotion of what you said a minute ago and take me back to what you started, why you started it. You're a teacher. You're going into this world. You're understanding who you are. You're angry. You're at the stages of the emotions, right? And you're holding on to one stage for quite some time, and something's happening in your world. So let's go there. Let's talk about this.
So I was 9 when my mother passed away, and just to like take people through this was the day before. These were the days before there were any organizations out there for any type of support, obviously.
There weren't even cheers. There weren't even Misaskim.
No, there really was not.
Right.
Misaskim started the same year that I started.
Wow.
So anyway, there was literally nothing. So my mother passed away on Shabbos, actually on Tzom Gedalia, which was a nitcha that year. It was a pushed off fast. And so it was basically, we had celebrated Rosh Hashanah for 3 days then at that point. Now you have to realize, and this I tell people all the time, my mother was sick for 7 years, but because I told you, we had girls living in the house, we had a happy home, we had everything. She would consistently go to the hospital. And every time they'd tell her, you're dying, right? And every time she would just like say, well, you told me that last week also, right? So I never had this preparation of like, oh, your mother might be dying. Like it didn't even float my mind for a second. To me, I looked at it as like the same way a kid gets strep, goes to the doctor, gets penicillin, and is home for 2 days. Like my mother does this with the hospital, and honestly, it didn't bother me. Like people say to me, it didn't bother me. I had such a consistent, loving childhood that I didn't even care. Like it didn't bother me. So I went to visit her 3 days before she died in the hospital, and it wasn't like she said anything special to me. Like, oh my gosh, I'd love to tell you this before, because again, even to her, it was like, I'm dead for 7 years. Like, what does anybody want from me? In fact, it was very funny. She had a very good friend of hers, Gitti Soloff in Monsey, who came to visit her before Rosh Hashanah. And she said to Gitti, do me a favor. My mother was a very fashionable and fashion-forward person, unlike her child. And she went into it, and she said to her, do me a favor, go buy me a new robe. And Gitti looked at her, and she was like, you're not doing very well. Like she knew she was really not in a great place, like medically. And she looked at Gitti square in the eye. I told you my mother was fun. And she said to Gitti, listen, if I'm going to die, let me die pretty. So it was like, this was the kind of vibe we had. So nobody ever sat down with me like what we do today and say, hey, let's prepare, let's think, let's, say goodbyes or whatever it was. There was none of that. So my father, kudos to him, broke the news to me himself. He refused to let anyone else tell me, which was amazing on his end, even though it took a lot of courage. And he shared that with me Matzah Shabbos, and I was hysterical, completely hysterical. Also, I was attached to my mother at her hip. Like, I was an only child. I went with her everywhere. I couldn't even wrap my mind around this as being a fact. Like, it was something that didn't sit well with me, to put it mildly. Then I had been staying at somebody's house. Then my father took me home. I come home, and Monsey was very small then. My mother was very popular. So all her friends and Rabbanim were in the house, and the house was like a whole hullabaloo. And I remember at some point, I asked my father for permission. I ran out of the house. I actually ran to a neighbor's house, and I literally knocked on their door. And they opened the door, and I said, my mother passed away. Or I think I might have said my mother died. I don't remember. Or my mother was nipped, or whatever I said, whatever the line was that I used. And she literally asked me to repeat it twice because she wouldn't believe that a 9-year-old kid would come to say this, like, knock, knock, knock. Hi, let me share the news with you. But I was desperate to tell. Like, there was this tell in me that I couldn't, And then I called some of my friends, actually, and I told them. And it was like, first of all, it was the days before texting. I don't know what I would have done today. But at that point, I was desperate to tell. Like, there was this piece in me that just had to get out. Anyway, we had the Levaya. The Levaya was a huge event. And after that, I came home. That was on Sunday. I came home, and my father explained to me how Shiva works. And he said to me, you're not bas mitzvah. You're not 12 years old yet. If you don't want to sit Shiva, you can go to school tomorrow. Or if you want to, you can stay home. And I assessed my house where I was going to sit with my grandmother, who I loved dearly, but she was an older woman, and my father, and all these people coming into the house. And I said, I want to go to school. So I went to school the next day, Monday. And let me tell you something. I went on the bus. Okay.
Oh, my God.
Now, I knew there were no bus teachers on the bus or no monitors. The drivers weren't from, nobody made an alert. Hi, SOS school. The kid came to the bus. Regular East Ramapo transportation. I'm standing at the bus stop. I get on the bus. I come to school. Nobody had thought to update, like the principal, the teacher, anybody. You realized they were all friends of my mother. They had just been at the Levi yesterday.
Well, that's the purpose of Shiva. It takes time.
And they're like, processing it on their own. And I come to school and nobody knew what to do with me because they were like, oh, this is an unexpected plot twist. We didn't see this one coming. Now, I came into school not crying. I came into school regular, which is what I teach and train people today. Kids at that age sometimes can put up, it's not even a front, it's their survival. They need to get back to Lego and Playmobil and dolls and whatever they're into. So they will push themselves in that way because that feels safe. That's what I know. And I wanted for safety to be back at school because then I'm like every other kid. So I was at school and there were a lot of funny stories the week of Shiva, like that they used to have these notes that they would give out to the whole school when a parent was sitting Shiva. So they gave out the notes and I'm like, you could leave me out of this one. I don't need this one. I actually know this. Or we had a new kid in the class, poor girl, and she came in and I was sitting on the floor cutting out, this was Yontif time, so I'm cutting out arts and crafts in 4th grade. And she said to me, my father said that it's not a good idea to sit on the floor because it's like when you're sitting Shiva. And I'm like, I am, but I'm just not home. So there were a lot of crazy stories. Like when I look back, like there was serious dysfunction in the fact that I went.
I think it caused trauma to other kids.
Yeah, I did. I completely did. So anyway, the concept that the school then adapted, and I can't even blame them for it, was let's not rock the boat. She looks like she's doing fine. She's clearly giving us the signals of she's fine. Let's leave it, right? And the line that I use now is the boat's been rocked. You can't really rock this boat. The boat's been rocked already. And I really did need someone to reach out and to kind of connect. And I was desperate. So I asked my father, I said, do you know of any other girl in Monsey who lost a parent? And my father said, no, but there's a man who davens in shul. He was young. And I'm like, he's old. He was probably like 29 or 31. And I'm like, he's old. Like, why would I want to even have a conversation? And my father couldn't find anyone. A couple of years later, somebody connected me actually with a girl. We had a short-lived pen pal relationship, if you remember what those are, where we wrote letters. But I kind of always sought this out. When I got to camp in 7th and 8th grade, I made more friends who had lost a parent. And I really connected. And those friendships were treasures for me. And that kind of planted the seeds in my head before I started an organization of the biggest support for kids who lost a parent is kids who lost a parent. When you meet another 5th grader or another 3rd grader or another 12th grader, you know that you're not the only one. And for me, part of the loneliest part of the journey was that I was an only child and I knew nobody else my age who this had happened to. And when you feel that alone, everything goes up, whether it's the sadness, the anger, the everything like that, because you feel like I am the only person in the universe going through this. And it's not a pleasant experience. So that was kind of my journey. I had a lot of ups and downs. My father remarried and I moved back with him. I had been living with a different family. My father remarried someone who was not previously married and didn't have children. So I didn't have step siblings. I remained the only child. But it was a journey. And my father also wasn't young at the time. And don't forget, I was a second marriage for my father. I was born of a second marriage. So it was definitely a journey in terms of all that. And I kind of went through a lot of skipping over grief in my elementary years. And then I hit high school and I hit 10th grade and it hit hard. Really, really, really hard. I was about 15 years old. I was desperate for the Shiva that I never sat. Like that was what I was desperate for. I just wanted a week where I could sit in a chair and everybody would tell me stories and I would sit there and I could be sad in peace. And I didn't have that. So I actually went to a payphone in camp. This is a funny story, sorry. But I went to a payphone in camp and I called the Machon Lahara hotline, which is a halachic hotline that existed in Monsey a million years ago. Nebuch, you want to now have a lot of pity on the Rav who takes the call. Listen to the call. I said, I'm 15 years old. I'm in camp. My mother passed away when I'm 9, and I'm not giving him my name. And I said, and I want to sit Shiva now. You're the Rav taking this call. Let me tell you something. It's like, boop, by mistake, we got disconnected, right? But he didn't. He was incredible, and I wish I knew who he was because I don't. And he validated. He said, I just want to tell you something. Hashem created a system for how we grieve. There's the Levaya, there's the first 3 days of intense crying, there's the 7 days of Shiva, there's 30 days that we keep certain things. There's a whole year that we keep other things. And then we have yard sites continuously and Yisker, right? When you mess with that system, it makes sense that you're not feeling okay. And I remember he made me feel normal because I really thought I should be locked up at that point. I was like, I must be crazy. 15 years old and I want to sit Shiva when something happened 6 years ago. There was nobody out there to tell me that grief lasts forever or that these things don't get resolved so fast. I was like, it's 6 years out. I should be over this, right? So by validating that, he did me one of the greatest chasadim in the world. And then he said to me, and I'm so sorry, you can't really sit Shiva now, right? But it was a magnificent answer of this like validation and, not even but, and. So that was kind of the start of real angst in 10th, 11th, 12th grade. I was a good kid on the outside. I was the kid that everybody would have said does well, academically, socially, in every way. And I can tell you today that I did very not well. Inside, I was a mess. I was an absolute royal mess. I was angry. I was sad. I really felt like this world was a very dark place, but I didn't have any of that on the outside. It was all inside. You see all the pictures from then? I'm smiling, I'm laughing, I'm creating chagigas, I'm Geo, I'm doing the whole thing. I'm like walking the walk. Part of that was the mentality of which many of us were brought up with, the soldier mentality of it didn't really matter what you went through. My father went back to work and I went back to school, right? Like we just did what we needed to do. But I definitely wasn't. So it kind of planted the seeds of like, I needed more understanding. I needed more compassion. I needed to be more connected to people who got it. I needed the language for what was happening to me. And I think the lack of having all that, I felt very much like I was turning inwards. And that turning inwards for a teenager is a very, very, very scary thing. So that's kind of...
It's making me think also, by the way, and addicts need help from each other to understand the emotion and support one another.
Yeah.
It's not just for addicts, it's anyone that's suffering from a challenge. The second you find other people that are doing it, you're like, I resonate with it personally, and I just want to share it with you for 30 seconds. And I'm sure many of our listeners are, thinking, similar stories that happened to them. I've learned over the years that when someone says a story as badly as you want to say, oh my God, it happened to me too. Like, oh my God, I have a version of that's even cooler. Nobody cares. Just listen to the other person's story, for crying out loud. So I saved this response for like 20 minutes ago, from 20 minutes ago when you started saying about your parent, when you found out you had to tell someone you ran over. And what a crazy story. I'm just thinking what happened to me when my dad died and I was in my young 20s. And I was in touch with Hatzalah constantly because he was going. And when he died, I called them. I remember being Michal Shabbos, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, I know I'm not supposed to pick up the phone now, but I'm going to do it. And I picked up the phone, I called Hatzalah, and I'm like, hello? And they're like, yeah, can I help you? Hatzalah, right? They pick up. They're amazing, by the way, Hatzalah. I can't wait to get Kalish, CEO of Hatzalah. He's coming on the podcast.
Oh, wow.
He needs a lot of accolades and credit. But anyways, I'm like, my father just died. And they're like, it was silent. And I just never forget it. And the guy was so compassionate over the phone. He says, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And I'm like, but he died. But what should I do? What should I do? And I remember thinking, like, what should I do? Just remembering now, it's the first time I've ever said this story to anybody, actually. I'm just telling it to you now. I remember thinking that now when you're saying it, I'm thinking back, I just needed to tell somebody. And it's like when you're happy, you need to tell someone, you need to dance with someone, you need to sing with someone, you need to say thank you Hashem with someone. It just feels good. So to the emotion, the opposite effect is true as well, which is amazing. Like, wow. So, but tell me what happened with your process about how this led you to starting something, because it's amazing. I'm thinking back like, oh my gosh, they don't have support systems for this. Everyone should have a support system for something. How is there nothing there?
So in 2006.
It's bothering me.
Right? So it's very interesting because now
I'm angry.
There's so many different organizations right now in different parts of this that deal with it.
Sure.
And sometimes people are like, oh, when did you start? And I'm like, I started before there was anything on the market. So anyway, what happened was that in 2006, I had been working for the magazine. I was teaching and everything like that. And I had my first child. And somebody came to me and said, there should be, I think that was the words that they used, there should be a magazine for teens who lost a parent. Now, I have to give everybody context for a second. In 2006, which was 20 years ago, a Times main service was a magazine. High Lifeline had a newsletter for parents with children of cancer or something like that. I don't remember exactly. Like all the large organizations, their main service that they would advertise was their magazine or their newsletter. Why? Nobody was going out to events. Nobody was showing up and saying, hey, I also. So everything came to people's homes and it was delivered. And in those days, we didn't even put the name and the return address. We just put the address. So like people were very like kind of standoffish, like, yes, I want the support, but I want it from afar.
Right. And then put it under the rug.
Right.
And we're done.
So somebody said to me, you know, there should be a magazine. So I said, sure, I'd be happy to help with that. And she said, no, you should do it. And I pulled out a shelf in my pantry, true story, and I screwed in a light bulb and I put the Mac in there that we had, the iMac. And I wrote almost the whole magazine under 6 different pen names, and my husband designed it. And I sent it out to 10 families who agreed to get it. And from then until now, we never send anything out to a family unless they've asked for it. Like we're very respectful of that. So there were 10 families I knew that had lost a parent, and I called each of them and said, would you like to get a magazine for teenage girls? And they're like, yeah. So I sent it. And then I did the marketing move. I said, how am I going to get other people to know about this? So I printed 50 extra copies. I only had money for 50 more copies. And I put it in an envelope and I sent it to about 30 rabbanim, like 5 therapists who I knew, and 5 principals, with a cover letter saying, hey, here's a new project that I'm starting for teenage girls who lost a parent. Today we do girls and boys, but we started initially with this. And today we don't only stick to teens, we do 0 to 23, but this was how it started. And I wrote, I'm starting this for teenage girls who lost a parent. If you know a family who could benefit, here's the information you can give them. And this is how they can sign up. And we got families who were reaching out and saying, oh, we'd love to get this magazine. Oh, we'd love to get this magazine. And that's literally how our word got out.
Did you know that you had this marketing ability in your head at that point? Because that's actually a very smart move. Yeah. You know, in order to get to your market, you're reaching out to the leaders of the industry and just going in to there, and they're going to bring into you from their community. Very smart move.
So I didn't know.
There must be like a name for that in the marketing world.
But it really was a good marketing move when I look back at it. And then at the end of the day, what happened was a year later, 7 girls sat around my dining room table and said, would you start a Shabbaton weekend for us?
Moving up from a newsletter to a Shabbaton. Exactly. That's like a huge move.
And I said, sure, because I was so young and so dumb and I had no idea. By the way, the first email address we had was Links Magazine, because that was all it was supposed to be, was a magazine. So there was no Shabbaton in that guidebook. So we then had a Shabbaton where 50 girls came, and that was considered huge. We did it in a hotel that no longer exists. I think it's a nursing home actually today. I got to remember now that Madison Suites, they were called, in Somerset, New Jersey. I didn't know what I was doing. I hired actually a guy to find this hotel for me. He charged me a whole $2,000 to organize the whole thing. And we did this. I got somebody to fund it, and my father raised the first $10,000. And we had this.
Your father.
I'm telling you, legend. So we started.
Did he tell you that he's going to do it?
Yeah. And my father was like the proudest peacock of this project. Like you couldn't find somebody prouder. My father used to approach anybody in Monsey.
Did you say the proudest what?
Peacock.
The proudest peacock of this project?
Yeah.
Well, I never heard of that term before.
Oh yeah, proud peacock. So he was like the proudest peacock, and it was just, he went over to like people who he had fundraised, $100 for something from, and he said, my daughter's doing something very big. And it was like, whatever. And he schlepped me around to a couple people as well.
He knew.
Oh yeah. And he really, and I came out with, $500 from this one, or $250 or $1,000. And he put together about $10,000, which was amazing. Anyway, long story short, we started the Shabbaton, and one of the best stories I think was that Reb Matziel Solomon said he would come for Sunday to speak. And he came in and he said, I'm in my 70s and I lost my parent as a child. And I've been waiting all these years to be in a room with people who understand. That was his opener. So that made the mission. That was the mission. It was like, oh, we need to get people into a room with other people who understand. So we really made a lot of fun mistakes on that first weekend. And I'm just going to say this, any organization that's making a Shabbaton, I am happy always. I give them a 20-minute consult. And I will tell you all the mistakes I've made so that you don't have to make them. I do this all the time.
I want to get into that for a minute, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure.
And we touched upon this earlier, and I said we're going to get back to it, and here we are. Okay, let's talk about organizations, non-for-profits starting. So Rav Matasyahu, by the way, who's done so much for Klal Yisrael, for the Jewish people as a whole, he can come to a dinner, say one line, and suddenly form an organization that lasts a lifetime. Obviously, we should never need this, but the reality is it is needed, and it's unbelievable the power of that one human being that can say one line, and it's amazing that impact. So thank you for sharing that story. I'd like to go, into the world of non-for-profits, fundraising, understanding this world. If I was to open one up tomorrow, why should I? Why shouldn't I?
You definitely shouldn't if you want a life.
Before we do, growing up, your personal life, what you said before, as a young girl, what's your message for someone who's going through that or scared to go through it, who's unfortunately through the process right now? There are people that are going through this process of, having a loved one that's going through hospice or, knowing that. So I'd just to pause the segment, and just talk about that for a second. What would your message be to those people? Or if you look back at yourself, your younger self, that you can tell yourself, like, just this one thing I want to share with my younger self, what would that be?
So it's very interesting. We just did a video that we're showing actually at the concert, and Label Schwartz asked me a question.
I love Label.
Yeah, he's amazing. Yeah. He's amazing. And my brother-in-law works for him for many, many, many years, which is how we connected. So anyway, the bottom line is that Label sat down, and Label asks some of the best interview questions I have ever heard in my entire life. And he asks me questions in a video when we're producing as a fundraiser, things that I'm not usually pushed to answer. And he said to me, he says, it's very interesting. You're in a grief space. You're in a very sad space. But every time I come to your office, it's a very upbeat place. What makes Lynx happy? Right? If you're dealing with so much sadness and so much death. And I said to him something that I had never thought about consciously before, but I realized it as I said it, and it's the answer to your question. We know grief, right? And many of our staff, not all, but many of them have also lost a parent as a child. And it's sad and it's heartbreaking. And let me tell you something, it is brutal, the journey. And, not but, we have such hope when we deal with these kids. Because to us, we see it, and we've seen this journey so often before, and we know what they don't know. I know what the village on the other side looks like. They've never rode there. I know it. And I can say that I'm doing this now 20 years. April's going to be 20 years. I have alumni in their 30s who are the most stupendous human beings on earth, doing the best things for Klal Yisrael, being the best parents they can be, being the best people they could be. And so when I see a 13-year-old or an 11-year-old, what I wish someone would have had for me, not even said to me, because nobody wants to hear at 11, you're going to be amazing and you're going to be fine, right? Nobody wants to hear that because right now I'm not. But if somebody would have had that hope for me, that would have translated in the way that they sit with someone. And so if there's anybody listening to it and going through it, it's brutal, it's painful. We'll walk you, we'll hold you through that pain. And know that there's greatness that comes out of this pain, likes of which I've never seen. It just is. Wow. So yeah, I have a lot of hope.
Okay.
A lot of hope.
Amazing. Kudos to you on that.
We're going to talk about the nonprofit fund stuff.
I want to, because what happens is a lot of people that start organizations, they do it for the right reasons. They're passionate. They're creative. They understand the why. They're solving an issue. What they don't realize, unfortunately, is that they're going to end up having to be salesmen, and they're going to end up having to be marketing directors, brand developers, and networkers. And it's not just about the passion of the product or the service that they want to do. So how do you marry those two? How do you deal with the people that come to you? Give me a good example of someone that came to you that asked you a question and you're able to answer it in a way where you explain the dynamics of non-for-profit, or what do you have to go through as a woman, as an Orthodox woman, as someone who has to be shaking hands proverbially all day long, and you can't, but you have to. And, take me through that journey. Explain to me what I need to look out for. Tell me what I should learn from your mistakes. I'd love to learn from your mistakes.
So I think that the first thing is that you have to own the fact that all these roles that you just mentioned are your roles. And I think the first thing that I find sometimes when I meet specifically nonprofit leaders who started this because they want to do good in this world and are not business people or not marketing people or not salespeople by nature. And sometimes they fight me on it. They're like, I know, but I can't do that. And I always say to them, I said, at the end of the day, you can sell the organization best because there's a reason why you started this. You're passionate about the fact that these families or these kids or these people need this type of support, right? Or you wouldn't have started it. So going there and not doing any of this work, right? And saying, I gotta help me find a company that's gonna do this for me. There's no company that can ever do this. So if somebody's gonna start a nonprofit or really take their nonprofit up a level, they have to own the fact that these are their roles, right? And then the harder part is that they have to own what's no longer their roles as they grow. For me, that was a lot of grief, right? I started this because I was running that Shabbat home for girls. I was writing those magazine articles. I was going snow tubing down the mountain with kids, right? I was having those challah shopping with every challah. I was going around and sitting in a very painful space when a kid was having a real meltdown about the fact that her parent was not there for a milestone, right? You know what? I don't do any of that anymore, not even one of them. Everything that I just listed, I can't do because I'm on the road fundraising, because I'm busy with the technical stuff, because I'm sitting with the lawyers and with the state. And if I'm out all those hours, they usually contradict. Like if you're going to wait to figure out when you could do a snow tubing trip for when I'm there, that's a terrible idea because I'm not there. I'll be in Chicago on Monday. And if a donor calls me in Florida that he can meet up on Tuesday, guess what? I'm on the plane on Tuesday. So it meant that I had to keep letting go of things that were really important to me in the way that I started, but letting go to the right people. And to me, that's the second piece of a nonprofit leader. And I have this hashtag on LinkedIn called Tales of a Leader. When I started on LinkedIn in 2017, I was one of the first, definitely in the from female world to start there. And I started with a hashtag Tales of a Leader. I said, I'm going to take the ambiguity and the shadows and the curtains around the nonprofit world, and I'm going to put it right there in front of people. I want them to learn about the process because I think when people learn about the process, I think if you do a behind the scenes one time on what it takes to produce a podcast, what it takes to get the people to sit in this chair, right? What it takes to set up a studio that looks like this, what it takes to then edit, what it takes to put out. People start to have an appreciation. Oh my gosh, that's what you do to get me the content, right? And I felt that sometimes people just had no idea what it took to run a nonprofit, and therefore it was like easy to just kind of have opinions, if you will. Once they understood the process, there was so much more compassion for the process, dare I say. So anyway, part of what I had to let go of was a lot of the stuff that I loved, but my fingerprints are still all over it in the sense of people know the style that I want it done in. People know what matters to me culturally, all that type of stuff. We have a hashtag called Dignity Matters. We have never in 20 years shown a face or a video or a picture of a child that we've serviced. Never. Not even if they offered. Because it's something that I believe compromises dignity. So we're so careful. We never use the word orphans in our ads. It's children who lost a parent. It's just kinder. It's softer. It's not their identity. They're so much more than a child who lost a parent. That's one of the pieces that happen to them. So all these things are part of and parcel of what we do. So it's not like I'm not involved in that sense, but I had to let go. And I think for a lot of nonprofit leaders, that's the hardest part. The joke that there's a certain Rav who made this joke with me. He says, you started in chinuch like every good Rosh Yeshiva and you ended up in fundraising. But it's the truth. It's at the end of the day, you have to let go of so many parts in order to really fundraise. And the best fundraisers usually are the founders because they know why they're doing it. I'm also probably the only person who will not rest until I have something that I know a family needs. It bothers me, right? I made you angry before. It makes me just go on edge and say, I got to get this done. How are we getting this done? And that's what forms all different fundraising ideas and opportunities. So I think for me, one of the biggest things in the beginning was I hung back and I said, I'm not a fundraiser. And you can't say that. It doesn't happen. If you got to get it done, you've got to get out there and get it done. And if you can't, then you're going to have to believe that your organization may stay very small and limited. And that's okay. For some people, that's what they're willing to take.
Such a kind way of saying it. I was thinking, if you can't, then don't do it.
No.
But
there are people who will say, listen, I can distribute
do it yourself. Yeah.
cases of something to my block, and you want to do it that way, and you know that
I
you
don't have an issue with that.
What
I'm saying is that there are some people that they can deliver boxes, but they think they can move mountains, and they're not sure of how to do it and what to do. And
I want to tell you something. I am a forever learner. That's just my nature. So I'm a learning junkie.
I like that term.
Okay. Part of the reason that I got hooked on your podcast. Okay. Let's talk about this for a second. And I think this is true for any nonprofit. There's a lot in common between business and nonprofits. And for anybody who thinks that's a dirty term, they're wrong. Because at the end of the day, if you don't run your nonprofit, first of all, from the IRS perspective, you're a business. The category of your business is a nonprofit. But when you get incorporated, you are a real business, and you better run your business like a business in terms of books wise, right? They want your P&Ls. They want your forms at the end of the year. They don't want any jokes going on here, right? So you better understand the mechanics of what it takes as a business in terms of that. But also so many other mechanics that work in business, work in a nonprofit as well, whether it's how you hire, how you structure things, how you teach your team your mission, your vision, and get that to be so that they can do 10 times more. They've 10x'd what I've done in terms of programming. They're much better than I could ever be, because if I'm going to try to do everything, right, I'll be like that entrepreneur who's just is the only person to do it. So there's really a lot of learning in terms of business. When I saw your your podcast pop up and the word business was in there, right, it attracted me right away, because I'm like, I like to hear from people in business how they make their decisions, what structures that they have in place, what's going on. And I don't care if they're in healthcare or they're a dentist. At the end of the day, I want to be able to hear, I listened to Naomi Streicher's thing. It was fascinating, but it was also fabulous in terms of there's so many things that are happening in real estate that at the end of the day I listened to Shimmy J's piece, and there's so many pieces of marketing that I'm like, oh, that's a genius idea. Let's take that and make it our own in our own way. And so for me, I'm a forever learner. So I'm taking courses, I'm going to seminars, I'm listening to podcasts, I'm reading. Like, people know my reading list is like a little scary. I could read 4 or 5 books at a time. I'm a readaholic. I like read them and I'm done. And I love that because it helps me grow. And then I'm able to help my team grow in their own way, where I'm like, hey, sometimes it'll be a suggestion of like, listen to this or whatever. But at the end of the day, it's about really learning and learning and learning. And that's one of the rules to me in a nonprofit, is a nonprofit who says, well, this is how we've been doing it. Right? I'm like, my heart goes out to you. When I have that type of call, I know that I'm not going to get anywhere.
Yeah.
That it's a waste.
That's the first breakthrough, that you can't do the same thing over and over.
And part of the reason, by the way, that I make my 20-minute calls is because people paid it forward to me. When I started out, Rabbi Shimshon Lauber, I'll never forget him, from Bikacholim of Rockland County. He was a neighbor of ours growing up. He lived 2 doors away, and I sent him a copy of the first magazine, and he wrote me the most magnificent thank you note and a letter of encouragement back. And I just looked at that of like people who paid it forward. I've sat with leaders of so many nonprofits when I was starting out who gave me good advice. And I said, if I can pay it forward. And then it got to the point where I said I can open a consulting agency. I just don't have time. So that's where I have my 20-minute rule. I have a certain block of time every week that I'm willing to put in my 20-minute sessions. And that way people come with the most important things that they want to do. And, we try to get through that.
I like that 20-minute rule.
Yeah.
I want to go into, we'll wrap up with this simply because it's Erev Shabbos. People don't know what goes on behind recordings.
Well, I told you, do a behind the scenes.
Yeah. I'll tell you behind the scenes right now. It's 4 hours before Shabbos, and we both.
I'm still going to Brooklyn.
Right, you're still going to Brooklyn, and I'm hosting a whole Shabbaton, and we both have a lot going on in our lives, and so this is the part that I want to talk about, and I want to hopefully learn from this process of yours. Your father was a very, very busy person, and I don't know how much you got to see him, and the impact that he has on you emotionally, and the connection that he had obviously with you, and the amount that you grew from him is astonishing, of how potentially, I don't know, little time you may have spent together, because he was busy, he was out there. Dare I say that you might have that same challenge today as a person, as a human. You can dare. Right? As a friend, as a, right. As a business partner, as a family member. One of the biggest challenges that I have in terms of doing things for others is being there for myself, being there for others, being there for the family, and prioritizing. So I have my own little way of doing things, but I'd like to learn from you in terms of how did your father make such an impact on you without being around so much?
So my parents are my guilt trip. They are my absolute guilt trip, because if you think about it, a mother with stage 4 cancer going chaperoning every trip and taking me and my friends out for pizza every Friday, and my father being the busy man that he was and leaving this type of impact. I struggled with this for many years because I have 4 kids, Baruch Hashem, and a robust life in many different ways, in the best possible way. And yet I have so many like dual responsibilities that are sometimes schlepping me in different directions. I don't know if my kids know this, but the reason we don't have guests for Shabbos is because it's the only time that I'm 100% guaranteed that I'm home. And I knew that there were times that my father had that were exclusively mine. And I think that that's subconsciously some of this, is there are times that I am exclusive. I am exclusive in that way to my family. My family can be my extended family as well, but it's family time for me. And Shabbosim and Yomim Tovim, I like to spend that way so that I know that this is my time that I squeeze in. Now, that doesn't mean that during the week I'm away all the time. It's actually something my husband always reminds me of that for many, many, many years, especially when my kids were younger. I was always home when their bus came home and stuff like that. It meant that I burnt the midnight oil. I would get back on that laptop and be working from 12 to 2 sometimes or stuff like that, but to put it in. But I was there, and I tried to have that conscious effort in terms of that. But it's not perfect. And I know that my kids would listen to something like this at some point and say, right, and you missed this or you did that or stuff like that. And it's fair. It's fair. It's not even something I would get defensive over. It's something that's true. And it's a struggle for many of us who are out there building anything. And it's a truth. And I would never be able to do it without my family support. And I'll just say here that it's something very rare, is my family doesn't get to enjoy any pieces of it. We don't allow any of our staff kids into any event, which means that they've never seen the inside of our work. And I do that by design because I feel that for a kid coming to an event, it's not fair to find a classmate of theirs there, especially if that classmate's going, Tati, come over here, or Mommy, come over there, when they don't have a parent. Like, how am I doing this to them? It's terrible in my view. So I couldn't do it, and I've never allowed my children to join anything. But that means they're not getting the perks, if you will, of whatever happens at a Shabbaton or whatever gifts are being given out here. It just was never something that we did. They certainly got no fame for it. They've just lived a regular life in that sense, and had to divide their time between me and communal responsibilities. So I think it's tremendous respect to them, and I'll always have that torn piece in terms like that. It's finding pockets of time for me, at least.
The exclusive time.
Yeah, and I'll just say this. This was something you said before, and it's just interesting because it kind of ties here, is this piece about fundraising. And in general, listen, I have to pull in $5.5 million, so there's got to be a way to do it, right? So the way we structure it, the way I see it, talk about what I've learned from business. If you put all your eggs in one basket, which is what I did when I started, I had one main sponsor. My budget arguably was smaller. It was $30,000, but it was one person who was funding that $30,000. I didn't have a need to go out and get to know other people. And the problem with that was when the market went down in 2008, so did this donor. And with that came a big, big shock of we didn't have a Shabbaton that year. And we didn't have a lot of other programs and services. I had to halt everything, which is the mistakes I teach people all the time. You can never put your eggs in one basket. So right now what we do is like $2.5 million I raise in a campaign in the beginning of the year, which is a separate fun conversation about how that works. We are probably the only ones who do all our marketing in-house and stuff like that, most of it. And we really pull out, I would say, a tremendous amount of profit from that campaign. Then we do parlor meetings, which are designed to get to know communities, like where I got to know you, and they get to know.
Shout out to Nehemiah Zweig for hosting an amazing event.
That's right. He and Steve Reeder are amazing. They pull this off in Monsey every year.
That's right. Yes,
and then at the end of the day, so we get to know people in different communities, and obviously we raise the next, I would say, million or so comes from communal parlor meetings, doing 9-10 of them a year. And then we have the concert. And then we have the knock, knock, knock. I come to people's doors and I wait there. And I want to just tell you something. It gives you a whole different perspective on Ka'ani hadaifik ala Pesach, like a poor man knocking at a door. Sometimes even when I'm cold and I know I'm going to be respected and treated well, but that minute you ring that doorbell, your heart lurches into your stomach.
I hate to say you're the beggar.
And I'm sitting there going,
that feeling.
Gosh, why do I have to do this, right? And there are people who make it really easy for me, and they're incredible.
Yeah.
And there are people who make it really difficult for me. And it's hard. And you come home smashed after that, because you come home saying to yourself, like, why is this my problem more than anybody else's, right? And I'm human, and I try not to let it get to me. Most things I'm able to let roll off. But there are times that I'll stay home from work for 2 days, and I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't. And I really want to quit this. Like, I had this week last week where I was like, why didn't I just go get my MBA and do this whole thing and start $1 billion company, and then I'll fund this organization? Like, fine, I'll be the funder, let somebody else do the fundraising, if you will. And there's ways that people give that make it so beautiful. There's people who, like, literally, they don't make you chase them. They fulfill their pledges right away. Those are always appreciated, right? And there's stuff like that. And people need to know this, is that the person who's coming in is usually doing such hard work. And I say this about myself, but I say this about every nonprofit leader. We're out there and we're trying our best to do something that is for the community that usually didn't exist before we did it. And we've taken a lot upon ourselves, and it's exhausting. And 20 years into doing this fundraising, I could just say some days I'm like, I can't do it. And I have a tremendous amount of help these days, and I have an amazing director of development and marketing and stuff like that. But ultimately, the asks, for the most part, are my asks. And that's why I'm just so grateful always when there are people who are surrounding me who are like, you know what, 1 second, I have a friend who should meet you, or stuff like that. And people are really, really, really nice in that way. It's amazing. But I said to you at the beginning, I said, were you at ECAP this week? Right? And you said to me, how do you know ECAP? It's because I genuinely care about the people who get involved. Like, for me, these are real relationships. And there are people who I still send gifts to every year who can no longer give me. Their businesses have gone down and under. They haven't given in years. But I have Hakara Satov for what they've given.
Really?
Yes.
That's a very interesting thing you're saying.
And I will tell you why. There are people, I'll tell you a quick story. Mimi Gross, who founded Shlomi's Club, which is our boys division, in memory of her husband, Shlomi Gross. And if nobody read the biography, Shlomi, it is the most incredible book about a businessman who really turned his life into something extraordinary. It's an amazing book by our school. But anyway, so she once told me is that Purim used to be a very hectic day for her, and a lot of people would come and go, and not always was it easy to have. He was a huge Baal Tzedakah and stuff like that. And after he passed away, it's pretty much gone down, right? Think about a person who gave of his money, right? And always was there for the klal. And I think about one of my donors who built a tremendous business, and through no fault of his own, something happened, right? Life happens. Markets change, this, that. The business went down and under. Trust me, if he would be able to give me, he would still give me, but he can't. So he avoids my calls half the time because he's embarrassed and stuff of that sort. Isn't it horrible that now, as an organization who benefited probably $100,000 from him over the years, I now say, well, you're not worth anything. You're not worth my shalach manas because you can't give me any more. So what am I saying? This was an entirely transactional relationship. I believe in real relationships. And if I care about this person enough, and this person cared about my organization enough, then this isn't a relationship that goes down and under when he goes down and under. It's just not fair. It's not fair. So I try to do it. I can't say I'm always perfect about it, but there are so many people who I owe so much to, who for one reason or another are not able to give in the capacity that they used to, or not able to give at all. That's not their fault. Their families, their teenage boys now see that Purim comes and there's nothing there. So what's my father anymore? You want to know why they lose respect? It's not about the money. It's about the way the community has viewed them. So to me, like, I went to my parents' kvarim today. I take along, I have a list of names of some of my donors, some of them that I daven for their businesses, for their success. Sometimes I'll take along, they have kids in shidduchim and stuff like that. I want to know who they are. If they're my friends, then I care about them. And so I want to know that they went to ECAP. I want to know how it went. I hope they had hatzlacha there, right? And I hope they had hatzlacha if they went to base. And I hope they had hatzlacha if they went here, right? I know about all this is happening because I want to. I make it my business to follow donor statuses and get to know. And wow, you had a new grandchild. That's amazing, right? Or if there's something going on in their lives, I want to be able to know that because I genuinely care about them. And I think that in fundraising and in sales and in anything, caring about people ultimately is where we get to. And I can say that for my father, the $100 bill that he took for $1, right? Part of what I learned from my father with that is, are you familiar with our opportunities chat? Okay, you need to be. And afterwards, you'll get to know why. December 2021, I got a phone call from a woman who said she's an almana. Her kid had been part of our program, needed her wisdom teeth out. $1,500. Okay. Now, when you're running a budget of a few million, people think, what's $1,500 to you? But $1,500 times 100 people, and I can go out again and try to do this, right? So I couldn't do it. But it was bugging me. There's a 16-year-old kid walking around with an abscess in their tooth, and they can't get teeth pulled. They're in agony because of $1,500. Something about this just wasn't sitting well with me. So I said, okay, but I'm limited. So I got together with Daniel Dinesh, who runs our legal division, which does free pro bono legal and financial services for all our families. And together with him, I'm telling you, we didn't even get to anything. But basically what we did was we got a few people. We all brought along friends and cousins and whatever. And we did a chat of about 75 people on WhatsApp. And it was an admin only, no chatting. I posted this. I said, let's borrow a word from the real estate field. It's an opportunity. You don't have to invest in it, but I want you to be the first one to get the opportunity. So I posted opportunity. This is what we need. And people start DMing me. I'll send 100. I'll send 100. I'll send 100. And before you knew it, within a few hours, I had the 1,500 that I needed. Right? And I said, oh my gosh, we're onto something. Anyway, fast forward to today. We have over 5,000 members. Every Erev Shabbos at 9 a.m. Eastern, there's an opportunity posted. Now, these opportunities get vetted through our case management system, our clinical and rabbinical team. By the time they make it on there, we've already done everything we could. If it's something we can fund on our own, we do it. It doesn't become an opportunity. It's something different, right? And we post it at 9 a.m. every Erev Shabbos. I'm telling you. So this Shabbos was a family that we are funding their therapy. The kids found the father when he died, and it was a pretty gruesome death. And 2 of the children now need a much higher level of care where they're going to require like an inpatient place, and it's a fortune. So we just had to do it. And so the regular therapy funding was being covered by us because we have a fund. We pay almost $500,000 in this a year, but this was not. So like, okay, we need more. Last week,
insurance is not covering these types of things?
No. Most of this is not covered. So okay. It happened to have been that we got it at a very discounted rate because we negotiated and whatever. So we were talking about $9,700, right? Every Erev Shabbos, we raised between $10,000 and $15,000 in under an hour. Today, $9,700 was in 16 minutes.
Congratulations to you, by the way.
Average donation was $33, just to give you perspective.
Oh, my gosh.
Right?
Wow. You know, but usually businesses are lending ideas to non-for-profits. Here, we're learning from non-for-profit how to run a business.
So this was, great. I looked at this and said, we started a separate account. This doesn't go to us. This has no overhead. This goes directly to the families that we need. What's happened through that is that it has grown. We've taught many other organizations how to have this as well, but we have it that every week we know we can cover XYZ. So sometimes a family will come to us and say, I need this. And I can say, in 3 weeks, I'll have it for you, you know, in terms of that. We had last week, I think, was a woman just lost her husband, and she does carpool for her kids and everything. She lives in a community where busing is not a thing, and her car died. And the mechanic was honest with her. He said, I could fix it. It's going to die in a week. It's over. This car's over. Right? She found the car for like $15,000. So we raised $15,000 in about 40 minutes. It was unbelievable. And it's became a race also. People like, it's the gold rush. Like people, I went to Florida and a guy tells me, he says, oh, you're the lady from the opportunities. I have an alarm set every Friday, 8:59, so that I make it, because otherwise sometimes I open it at 9:10 and it's gone.
That's beautiful.
So it's like Klal Yisrael's racing. There's thousands of people racing in a thing. Nobody sees names and nobody sees amounts.
Wow.
So it's completely like that. So that's a piece. And what's happened as a byproduct of that is we've sensitized the community to things that they never thought happened. And we've sensitized them to what we deal with on a day-to-day basis.
Let me ask you a question. You know, I've been going through a project for the past few months in building a girls' high school. Anyways, I've been speaking to a lot of women that are very powerful women that don't have time for WhatsApp. They only text. That when you call them, their response when they pick up is, how's 8:30 tonight? Like that's how they talk. And boom, 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 on the money, doing things, helping Klal Yisrael, building organizations. And I just have a question for you. So when you hear the name rabbi, it's sort of like, it's a connotation of like, you know, success. Like you're a rabbi, you know, oh, don't call me a rabbi. You know, I'm not a rabbi yet, you know, but when you learn something, so I have a thing that I always say, if I learn something from you, you're my rabbi, you know, so let me call you rabbi, just take it. But Rebbitzin doesn't have the same thing as rabbi. So I don't know what to do, because there's a lot of women that I want to call them rebbitzins because they are succeeding and surpassing what a rabbi ever did in their life. And I want to call them something other than Sarah Rivkah Kohn. What do I call you?
So I always say, by the way, that my greatest gift in life, and I say this with all honesty and not to be like facetious in any way, I always say the Mrs. is my biggest title. The fact that I get to be somebody's wife and a mother is my greatest achievement in life. It really is. It really is. And I have to say that the opportunity to sit with other people in nonprofits, and I'm like embarrassed you telling me that they don't have time for all this, that they're like, how is 8:30 tonight? I'm like answering WhatsApps 3 weeks later. But at the end of the day, it's something that I look at and I say, you know, I'm so grateful to have had this opportunity, so to speak, to get to know so many people, to be able to impact people in different ways. And, you know, I'll say one thing, you know, not more than any rabbi. I think that I've learned so much from so many people in the field, both male and female, who've taught me everything that I know, and I continue to learn. And I really, really, really do. And, you know, I'm just humbled and grateful. What can I say?
So you're saying Mrs.
Yeah. That's it.
Right.
That's my best title.
That's a good title.
Because I think Rebbitzin honestly has such a different connotation.
That's what I'm saying. I can't.
In terms of that, no.
Like
Even though
I'm no Rebbitzin. Like I don't make kugel. Okay.
Rebbitzins do a lot more than that. I've gotten to have to nail some of them down for hard jobs, but yeah.
You have such a rich history of different things that you've gone through in terms of growing this organization and what you've done with yourself, from not understanding math to really raising over $5 million at a budget now. And you're running a concert, a production. You're doing campaigns and you're in, like we started, sales, marketing, and you're not just a beggar, but the connotation of that really means a lot, because ultimately you're humbled by that understanding and that beginning of a person, and to where you've gone to right now. Kudos to you. Thank you on behalf of the entire, I guess, Jewish community for the things that you've been doing and helping, you know, people that have lost people in their lives. And
I hope it's okay that I say this, but if you are someone who lost a parent, or you have a child who lost a parent, we're here. We really are. And we always say this, like, we don't know where a podcast sometimes lands to a person in the moment that they are. And, you know, whether it's kids, and we do have some adult services as well, just for people to know that they don't have to go through this alone. I don't want anyone listening to this podcast who lost a parent to think that they have to struggle in their own little corner.
That's absolutely beautiful. Before we wrap up, 2 more things to do. Do you know what they are? Do you remember?
No.
Okay. Number 1 is, do you have any questions for me?
Okay.
Okay. I'd like to wrap up before doing that. And then we're going to ask you to pick somebody who can fit in a role in being a guest on this podcast.
Oh, you want a recommendation?
Yes.
Ooh,
yes,
those are great. I got a long list.
So let's start off with, do you have any questions for me before we wrap up?
So I have so many questions for you, like almost too many questions. You've shared so many parts. I know that you got involved with the school and stuff like that. For me, the biggest question is, how have you found transitioning from the business world into the nonprofit world?
I couldn't have done it without my business knowledge and without my support and understanding from my people from within my organization and my family. When you're in the non-for-profit world, you have to be a certain type of crazy, is something I learned, is to be a leader in the non-for-profit, and a git crazy, like Sterling Green taught the world these days. He has a great song. So the number 1 thing is that you do not go into leadership of a non-for-profit world without your family and your business support 110%.
Yes.
So that's the 1 thing I've learned. And the second thing is, which you hit the nail on the head, treat it like a business. I would not have been able to, you know, start off a high school and with a faculty and a leadership and a board and rabbinical board and systems and financial backing and marketing and production and plays and Shabbatons and HR and drama, you know, drama on the stage, drama off the stage, drama behind the stage, there's drama everywhere. But I welcome the drama, because like I said to everybody listening to me when we started the school, is that drama means that we're communicating. So at least we're communicating, and I know how to handle drama, so bring it on. And that's my answer to you in terms of what it took. Wow.
No, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. In terms of who I would suggest sitting in the seat, well, the problem was that I was really going to suggest Label Schwartz, which we had mentioned.
No, he hasn't come on yet. So
okay, so very good. So Label should definitely be in this seat.
Thank you for the suggestion. Thank you for coming on. This was Mrs. Sarah Rivkah Kohn. What an interview. What a story. What a life. What a lesson. What I just...
Thank you.
I want to make this episode Leila Nishmas, your mother and your father, so if you don't mind saying their names.
Well, that's very special. Okay, so my mother is Shoshana Miriam Bas Emanuel. And yes, she was born in Egypt. And my father is Yisrael Ephraim ben Chanech Henach. I say it with their father's names, which is way traditionally we say it. Happens to be in my own community in Stalin, where I married into. They use the mother's names after they passed away, but I never got used to it because my parents would say their father's names after death for their own parents. So I leave it.
And it's like you said, they know, they're listening, they're up there, they have more connections, than us. And I thank you for coming on and sharing all that with us. It was so beautiful, and the neshama should have an aliyah, and you and your family should merit only good from everything that you're doing and all the history that you come from.
Amen.
And what a beautiful message, what a beautiful story, what a beautiful background. I really appreciate you coming on here.
Thank you.
Thank you to all our subscribers or our listeners. Thank you to the Prime Source production team. We're doing great things, and we're so glad that you're with us. That's a wrap. Wow, amazing. Thank you.